first question is I do see a kind of study from CB Insights and analyze there are about every 400 hardware startup failed it, and found in there are two top reasons they failed it. So number one is lack consumer demand, and number two is high burn rate. So in other words, right, hardware startups most time raise money on a idea but not a product. So what do you think about this? So would you please share with us your thought on this? So we can start from Bakur, maybe.
Sure. So I just make a small intro before directly answering this question. That I think the product, like the understanding that it's harder to raise money for products than for software. I think it depends on which stage you are. And as you mentioned, like from idea stage, I think there is no real difference at very early stage because I mean, it's harder to make the MVP probably, of course, it's more, uh, in some cases, you need more investment in MVP than MVP of software, but not in every case because there are some hardware products which are small. And I believe that the for early stage when it's idea to the MVP, the assumption that hardware is harder than the software or product is harder than the software is wrong. That's my experience to what I see because I've seen a lot of great products got the MVP in few weeks, right? There are software products which you can develop in few weeks. This is just to start the conversation to compare these two fields where the main comparison I think is happening at the at most from the investment standpoint.
That's great. Thank you for sharing this, Bakur. So how about you, Marcus? I know you have a very diverse background. You've been in founders and also on the investor side too, right? So what's your thought on this?
Yeah, so I mean, I have invested in companies and I have obviously founded companies. But yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of tough because there is a lack of consumer demand, you know what I mean? And I feel like a lot of the big companies take that demand in terms of buying out startups and taking over kind of the market and I guess monopolizing it, as I guess you can call it. But I feel like most startups fail in the beginning because they build something that a lot of people aren't interested in. So it's just kind of a quick idea that you kind of just come out with and you raise a lot of money and then you start spending that money in places that you shouldn't be spending it in. So I mean, obviously I'm a big marketing guy, so I believe that that marketing should be the top priority. So yeah, I mean, if I were, I think, I forgot who exactly said it before, but if they had $1 million, they would spend $900,000 on marketing and then $100,000 on their business. So I think that's a big part of it. But yeah, budgeting is obviously very important. So.
Got you. Thank you for sharing this, Marcus.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Art? Do you have any comments?
Yeah. Well, just that with hardware and with in our case with the consumer product hardware, you know, you really it's harder to be flexible to reach product market fit. I mean, you just can't be as nimble as a software company or a services company. You know, so for yeah, I think you know it's the product market fit that drives the consumer demand, and then also you know currently there's so much changing in terms of retail marketing channels and so forth that it's definitely a challenging environment currently for consumer hardware certainly. Now, industrial products that are providing automation or so forth. I mean that perhaps it's not quite so difficult. I'm not sure, but anyway, that's my take on it. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you for sharing this. How about you, Bess? Do you have any kind of thought for this one?
Yes, I do. I don't want to jump in first because I tend to talk a lot.
It's okay. We like you to talk
Wait
about.
until- So I would like to share my experience to help all those people are doing, hardware product design and manufacturing. So we talk about how to make the product with very little money. So in our cases, we never raise any money, not from any funds or investor. So it's all bootstrap. So it's really tough. So we can't afford to hire anyone in US. All the firms are way too expensive. So and then because our product is very complex, very advanced. So we have to actually hire many design firm until we get the one that can actually meet all the requirement. So and kind of important for you to find the right contract manufacturer or factories to partner with. We are very fortunate because because we're doing lights, you can't just ask any CM or factory. It has to be someone have experience. Otherwise, you're wasting your time and money. So we are very lucky that I find a manufacturer with my family network, my personal network, that they have experience in manufacturing commercial lights. And then we have another factory that is really good in PCB design. So we use those two manufacturer to combine the expertise to build the first prototype. However, because they focus on very basic lighting and not the kind of lighting that we are aiming for. So the industrial design doesn't really meet the US standard that the consumer expect. Then, we hire another design firm, but that design firm focus on US style that doesn't really meet, the consumer expectation from Hong Kong, China, and Asia, because we buy basic light in US, but if we have to make the product, with a global international appeal, then the light has to be stylish, modern. It has to look different, unique, slick. That the consumer outside US will also open to the light. So we end up hiring another design firm that redo the entire product design, the industrial design, and that design firm were able to meet the requirement because the designer is a licensed architect who understands building. So I don't have to teach them about the building standard, the landscape, how to fit into homes and buildings, and those things, are easy to them. But the hard part is, they never done any advanced consumer electronics. So they have to learn, all the basic, how to fit everything in PCB and lighting, speakers, sensors, and all those things cannot conflict each other. So I think that we are able to bootstrap because we find the design firm in Hong Kong, and if we actually do it in US, we couldn't afford it. So we were very fortunate that, you know, we hire a firm that is willing to work with us, you know, start up with very little money. And then, you know, on the prototyping, everything is very expensive. If we do it in US, it would be, you know, very expensive, but we try to do it in Hong Kong and China. So we reduce the cost to first, you know, our first prototype is almost 3,000 because we add up all the things, you know, like we have to get the metal, plastic, everything has to have the right tolerance and precision so that the design is close to alpha and we can move close to beta. And some of the things I would like to share is if you want to design a product, don't stay in the prototyping stage too long, because the prototyping giving you the basic function is not enough, because in a product, you need to actually, you know, aim for what you want to sell to the consumer and start from, you know, the finished product and then work backward and try to, because, you know, it's such a long journey. And we didn't even anticipate that we spent so much time and, you know, redesign, revise, you know, everything, you know, on the alpha. So if you actually stay with, you know, the prototyping stage, that wastes too much time and money. And I will advise anyone to actually move quickly to alpha, work with someone that has experience. Let's say, you know, if you, you know, design speaker, you should find a speaker manufacturer. You know, want to build light, you find a lighting manufacturer. And also, you know, you have to adjust, you know, the market. For example, you know, we start with a product that we want to compete with Dyson light. But during the pandemics, we see Dyson light actually, they start selling at 1,200 US dollars. And then even then, you know, reduce the price to 800. And then during the pandemic, they even offer, you know, deep discount selling 600. So our product was priced at 650 at, you know, 600. But then, you know, we found that, you know, we cannot, you know, stay such a high price. Even the pandemic, a lot of people are willing to spend more money on home improvement, but still the price is high because we see Dyson light reducing the light, the cost from 1,200 to 600. So we quickly, you know, we getting, you know, some feedback, then we quickly reduce, cut our BOM cost to half, and we lower, you know, our cost to, you know, like we plan to sell at 350. So all these things, you know, you have to be watching your budget, spend the money at the right places, and still, you know, make the product, you know, smarter. I'm sorry, I'm taking a lot of time to talk about this.
That's good. Thank you for sharing the story, Bex. I really enjoyed it. I think so. We can go to the next one. I think next one the most kind of interesting one, and everyone is waiting for this question. Okay, I love this one because it's going to do with money. Okay, and this is also from CB Insight. Okay, they did a range. They rank kind of top 8 challenge startup face now, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic time. Okay, so rank number 1 is money. There's no point, right? So number 2, like lacking planning, time management, and also teams. So we are going to focus on number 1, money. So would you please share with us about your story, right, and how you raise your seed fund, and also how you manage your little money at beginning. So also most important is how can we avoid a high burn rate based on your experience for now? So we can start from Marcus.
Yeah, definitely. So when I got an investment, I actually set a business plan beforehand on what I was going to spend. I didn't want to put some money aside and then say, hey, I'm going to get this amount of money and then come up with a plan. So I came up with the plan beforehand. And I did that because once you get that money, you're going to start spending it in different ways. You're going to overload yourself, and you don't want to do that. So I strategized in the beginning. And then after that, I kind of cut down my costs little by little. Obviously, I focused on marketing and kind of getting out the name in the beginning. And then obviously the product was a big investment for us. So yeah, I mean, that was obviously a big challenge for us, but getting the investment initially, it was a little tough, but it obviously took some time and negotiations and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, it's like Bess was saying, it's actually, it might be a little bit better not having an investor in the beginning, because you go all in yourself. You're there 24/7. You put everything you have into it. Even though you would be doing it if you had an investor as well, but it just kind of puts you in a different mindset. So.
Yeah. So how about, why don't you share a little bit, like, I know most people right now, they have a high burn rate, right? Do you have any kind of suggestion to this kind of topic? Like, what do you recommend for the high burn rate for most startups so far?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, when we first started, we actually spent a lot of money on our office, which we didn't even need an office. Now we're just finding that out because now we're working from home. And I'm noticing that we don't have to work in the office down the line. Obviously, it would be nice to have an office, which we still have it until I think the end of this year. But yeah, I mean, you don't want to burn yourself out. You don't want to burn all the funds. So I mean, budgeting obviously is a really big part of it. I know everyone's into budgeting, but you have to put a lot of stress into it and put your money into certain parts of the business that are going to succeed. So like I said, marketing, into the product itself, and you're going to have to take a hit and not pay yourself out for a little bit. I mean, that kind of goes along with it. So I had that when I had my restaurant, and I didn't make any money for the first 6 months. So that's just kind of how it is. And then you kind of build yourself up from there.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Marcus. Thank you for sharing this. So we can move to Bakur.
Yeah.
Bakur, what do you thought?
We had I don't think that it's a unique approach, but our approach was to list the top 10 prospects, like the top 10 potential customers, which we basically dream who can be our customers for our product, and went to talk with them. And I think on the 7th meeting with one of them, they said that, okay, we will buy a few units, we give you commitment or payment, and that's how we went and raised money then from the investor, showing them the customer basically. And it's not, I mean, for the product, it's much easier, I think, than for the software to do this, if we like talk hardware, software again, because you show them what problem it will be fixing and what exact current gap is there, and how you can fix this gap with bringing physical product to their farm in our case. And it's kind of the you can make the point around showing the prototype, but also showing them that this is the gap which you never thought that this is a gap here, and this product can fix that. I think that was our case. I see in this case is also from other founders in the getting the customer before getting the investor.
Got you. Thank you, Bakur. How about you, Art?
Yeah. Well, I think we've been able to largely bootstrap and work with a limited number of investors. We have we've built up a team where the people that aren't equity based are are paid on an as needed basis, and and we try to support them as much as possible to minimize the the outgoing costs like that. And as we're going into the market, we saved a significant amount of money by going with aluminum tooling for the injection molding, so that which is good for up to 10,000 sets, and we figure that we'll have a second generation product by that time, and have a significant amount of enhancements, improvements to making the product by the time we're using that tooling up. So
that's a very good point. Yeah. So basically, you were saying, in order to leverage the burn rate, right? You minimize the cost upfront, just cutting the soft tooling instead of hard tooling to lower the cost.
Right.
And,
Right.
yeah,
And,
get the market first, and then try to make more money, and then to hit into the cash flow break even, something like that, right?
Yeah. And there were things where you have to look at the trade-offs. I mean, sometimes you make a trade-off where there's less engineering and it's going to be a little more expensive per piece, or where you can get your manufacturing costs down, and the engineering effort's worth it. There's that. Our initial product does not have well, the product has rubber-like components to it, and those parts are in the initial product, they're glued into place, but ultimately they'll be overmolded. But the overmolding, the engineering associated with that, was just going to be a little too expensive up front, and so we just went with the more labor-intensive process initially for the assembly, and then of course that also gets us just more familiar with the functionality of the product, as opposed to trying to do it totally the way you would like to do it if you if you were Apple, right? So anyway, we have to recognize that what our resources are for getting the products out there, and then and having the hands-on experience with solving the problem that the product solving the engineering problems associated with the product, so that it can solve the product problems for the customer, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for sharing this, Art. That's very good, very useful. How about you, Bess? Do you have any comments on this question? Oh, we can skip.
Yes, I would like to share my experience and learning. So getting the right industrial design firm is critical. When we actually hire, many, not just, like a couple, we actually hire many people to try, the product design, industrial design. But then you can't really get them to deliver, to meet the product spec. Then so what happened is, if you just find design firm, even though they may have a lot of experience making many product, but you have to see if they have the right experience in that specific product category. And also sometimes the design firm may not have the experience in mechanical engineer. It turns out to be a really important element, because if the industrial design cannot, give you a design that know how to design the part that can help you to find the right, contract manufacturer to make the metal parts and the plastic part and all the things, involved, including assembly, screws, and things like that. It's going to be a problem because it's going to cost you a lot of money and time, because they will need you to actually have an in-house mechanical engineer, or you have to hire another contract ME to do the job. So we are very lucky that we find the design firm that can also design the part, and familiar with different material, metal, plastic, fabric, glue, assembly, because he has experience design furniture. So that was very critical for us to save money, like we don't have to have an in-house mechanical engineer or hire anybody outside. Then because of the pandemic, everything is very expensive. So the if we actually have to order an alpha, it usually takes 4 weeks to make, and 2 weeks minimum, could be 4 weeks, to send back and forth, because some of the part is made in China, shipped to Hong Kong, assembly, and then shipped back to US. The whole process, it could be 6 to 8 weeks just to get one alpha. Even you're willing to spend like $2,000 or $3,000 on getting all the parts. So we have to be really smart and how to actually save money. So at first, we were looking at all 3D printing shops. However, the cost is the same as, ordering, from China, Hong Kong. You might save, 2 to 4 weeks time, but, it's not going to be significant saving. So we basically take a risk, and we brought in a intern and a mechanical engineer intern, and this is first time on the job. So his first assignment is to 3D print our parts. So he bought a 3D printer, and then from then we start printing, and within 2-3 months we were able to actually print really good quality of 3D parts, so that we don't have to wait for China, Hong Kong, and we can test our design, our part design. There's specific thing that we want to test, because if you actually try to make the entire product, it's too expensive and too long. So what we do is, we make smaller section of the product, and we test, each sensor to see if the sensor will work with the design integration. So we save money that way, because, we have the student intern learn, and he built, the 3D printing from scratch. And then end up, now we have 3 3D printing, 3D printer, and we do our, 3D prototyping ourselves. So that save us a lot of time and money there. I also want to mention that it's very important for you to actually think through the whole process, because you cannot just, get stuck in prototyping. You always have to think, how soon I can get the product, to the finished mark, or, manufacturing production. And when you actually, send the product, you have to think that, if your product's safe enough to even use or test, in the market. So for lighting, you cannot randomly just use the light. You have to pass the safety before you can use, try, and test, just the light, just the design. So we start with talking to USUL, Stanford Universal Laboratory, and they are one of the main, safety organization. So if you actually just go through UL, the cost is at US dollars. So we being smart that, because we also register the company in Hong Kong, then, I go to UL Hong Kong and I actually ask them to look at our product. So they give us another proposal, but because we have, the legal entity in Hong Kong, we end up actually being, quote and charge on the Hong Kong dollar, which is, much cheaper than US dollars, because UL, we probably have to pay a pretty good portion of the money to the sales for commission. But in Hong Kong, they don't really have, the commission system. So we were able to actually get a small fraction of the money, just, to work with UL Hong Kong. And also because the team, they have a different pricing and working system. So they didn't really charge us by talking to the engineer. We actually spent 2 half day talking with the LED team, the LED engineer that approved the light, and they spend all the time looking at our design and tell us that these are the things that they would not approve. These are the things that you have to fix first. So we actually able to fix all the design, even spending, without spending money, on the actual product. So we save a lot of money. And now, we can, if we want to pass the UL, we only paying a very small fraction of the cost compared to anyone in US. So you have to be smart about, thinking about the whole process, from the beginning to the end, even
Yes.
post-production.
I think that's very important. Yes, that's a very good point. So due to time limit, so I will cut you off here. Sorry. So we do have one attendee raising the hand, Ratchet. So feel free to ask the questions you have. The next question. This is going to be let's do the last one. So I know it's the pandemic. So many startups are under challenge right now. So what did you guys do different to moving forward with your kind of company and your products? So we can start from Marcus.
Yeah, definitely. So my business in the beginning was geared towards restaurants and small businesses and brick and mortar shops. So a lot of those, obviously, actually, most of those got shut down. So we got hit really, really hard during the pandemic. So we kind of had to shift our business model, and we did. So we kind of sat there and thought, hey, how can we target the current market and the current clientele out there? So we knew that the pandemic, obviously, no one knew how long it was going to last. So we started focusing on online businesses. So we started we shifted our business plan and started doing marketing for small businesses. And we started doing that for mainly online businesses, because obviously brick and mortar shops, restaurants were all shut down. So we focused on that, and we knew that restaurants would be back eventually. So we kind of kept our software on the side. But yeah, I mean, we shifted, and honestly, we actually have more sales than what we did before. So which is a good thing. And I think it's because it kind of made us focus really hard on what we're doing now. And you don't want to get into that position that you were in when the pandemic first started. So yeah, I mean, it was really tough, but I mean, yeah, if I were to start another business, I would find a recession-proof business plan where it kind of works post-pandemic and pre-pandemic. So you kind of have best of both worlds. But I mean, it's kind of hard to base that. But yeah, I mean, when we shifted the business, it worked hand in hand, and luckily it's been good so far.
Thank you, Marcus. Thank you for sharing this. Yeah, we can go next one, Backers.
Yeah, thank you. In our case, it was a little bit of opposite, in the sense that the autonomy and automation of farming was highlighted by this pandemic as something which we need even faster than anyone was imagining or planning. Right, with shelter in place and with the uh, hard time to finding the workforce for farm, with all of the pandemic lighted up, basically, or uh, the the problems we had through the pandemic, I mean farmers, uh, that basically played a significant role in acceleration of demand on our product. And I think that's will continue for many hardware or product companies even after we'll go to a new normal right phase, because a lot of hardware was kept on hold in many different ways through supply chain problems or other problems. And now that I already feel that people are coming back to the to see what's the progress, right? Uh, and I think there are a lot of hardware startups who will benefit from uh, kind of post-pandemic attention from the investor side.
Got you. Thank you for sharing this, Bakur. How about you, Art? Is a pandemic impact your business? Would you please share your?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, going in, as we were going into when the pandemic started, uh, our uh, our initial focus market was going to be entirely spectators at pro sporting events, and that completely went away. Um, and but we had already identified other market segments, and so we decided that the market segment best for during the pandemic is for outdoor enthusiasts, like bird watchers, that sort of thing. Um, but as we're getting very close to launching, the pro sports is starting to come back, and then also even more than pro sports coming back, amateur sports for like high school students and so forth were back, and so really we kind of evaluated and really looked closely at like three different markets as a starting point, and we've kind of benefited from looking at these different market opportunities, and I don't know if we're I think it will probably be the amateur sports market will be the lead that we'll be going with, because that is coming back, and by the summer it'll be pretty strong, we think, in the U.S. But definitely, you wouldn't, before the pandemic, you never would have thought that there'd be anything that would shut down pro sports, because it's such a big factor in the in the consumers' lives in the U.S. So, but that did that. So.
Thank you, Art. How about you, Bess?
Yeah, I would like to share our journey, because we pivot so many times before and during the pandemics. So first, when nothing happened, for smart home products, people care about security. So you can see, all the cells, going to the security camera, motion detectors, so on. But then we see, the shift of attention and priority and purchase, from the consumer. All of a sudden, people, care about health, and they, care about the safety. So we see the shift, from on the smart home product from security to safety and health. So we know that, we cannot actually have a product just, focus on, home automation and energy saving. It's not going to be, make it. So we redesigned the product, by shifting, the BOM and, the feature and functionality focusing on health. So luckily, we were able to, use our high quality components to, focus on health. Then we also, think that, B2C is a very difficult market. So we shift to B2B. But then, you have to focus on sales, find the customer, because if you spend all the time, effort on, getting the product, and then, find a customer later, it's too late. So you have to go, look for customers. So we actually go into, finding partnerships in B2B sales channel. So we have to find, B2B that has, the customer base, working with building platforms or partners, in the building construction business. And I also, think that it's very important that you design the product that, have a very wide scope. For example, some of the light that make in China cannot sell in US, or, the product they make for US cannot sell in other countries. So we make a very strategic product design. First, think that I make a rule, the design rule, it has to work international day one. So that's a major, design, because if you actually just randomly design a light, it only works for one country, and you have to raise series A and B before you can make it to, and you have to redesign, you have to spend the same amount of money and time to redesign a product to make to work in another country and get approved. So we designed the product, that support international 110 to 240 voltage. So during the pandemics, nothing can move in US because the supply chain was broken, and you can't actually pass all the certification and make all the way to US. Then because we have the design rule, first day is international. I was able to find partners in Hong Kong and Asia, so I don't limit myself in US. So that is, the thing that you have to think when you design the product. You have to think, you have to make your product so, flexible that you don't limit yourself no matter what happened, pandemic or not. If you stop in one country, you can still sell, in XYZ country.
Thank you, Bess. This is very good.